In this video, we are going to talk about cellular organelles that are involved in energy production and processing. We're also going to compare cellular organelles in plants and animal cells. Chloroplast is a cellular organelle that is involved in energy production. And by energy production, I mean transferring or transforming the energy of light into energy of chemical molecules in the form of glucose. Chloroplast is usually found only in photosynthetic organisms such as plant, algae, and cyanobacteria. These are organisms that can perform photosynthesis, taking the energy of the sun and transforming it into chemical energy in the form of an organic molecule. A chloroplast has a double membrane, a membrane on the outside and a membrane on the inside. So the outer membrane and an inner membrane. Inside of chloroplast, there's also a stack of membranes, which are called the thylakoid membranes, and one stack of them is called a granum. So these thylakoid membranes are involved in capturing the energy of light and transforming it into chemical energy of ATP and an ADPH. And you'll learn about that when we talk about photosynthesis. So the components of chloroplast that is involved in that conversion, in that capturing of the energy of the sun and converting it into chemical energy, is sitting on these membranes, in these thylakoid membranes. Then another space in a chloroplast is the soup in which these membranes are sitting, and that's called the stroma. It's an aqueous fluid, and there are further chemical pathways in the stroma that perform a part of photosynthesis that captures CO2 from the atmosphere and uses the ATP that is produced in the granum to transform CO2 into molecules, small organic molecules in the form of carbohydrates. So there are two spaces in a chloroplast that are involved in photosynthesis. One, the first step is in the thylakoid membranes, and the other step is in stroma. Mitochondria is another organelle that is found in all eukaryotic cells, and its job is to transform the chemical energy in organic molecules into a form of energy that is usable by the cell, which is the molecule of ATP. And it is being called the powerhouse of the cell. If it wasn't for mitochondria, we would not have any source of energy. So mitochondria also has a double membrane, an outer membrane and then inner membrane. But the difference in this case is that the inner membrane has a really high surface area. It's folded in multiple regions, so the inner membrane has a much larger surface area than the outer membrane. And the reason is that the components of the mitochondria that play a large role in producing the molecule of ATP are sitting on these membranes. So the cell, in a way, is trying to increase the efficiency of producing ATP. Now, mitochondria have their own DNA. They have a space inside which kind of equivalent to a cell cytoplasm or a chloroplast stroma, which is called the mitochondrial matrix. There is this space between the outer and inner membrane called the intermembrane space, which is very important in energy production, as you will find out later. Mitochondria also have their own ribosomes. Here's a electron micrograph of mitochondria in a cell. This is the outer membrane, and the inner membrane are these folds that are here. Now, what is the difference between plant and animal cells? Pretty much most of the organelles that are present in animal cells is also present in plant cells, with the exception of 3. Plant cells have a cell wall. Animal cells do not. And the rigidity of plant cells can be attributed to the presence of this cell wall. Plant cells have really large vacuoles, which play multiple different roles. One of them is storing water, which helps rigidity of the cell, and sometimes it contains pigments and sometimes enzymes. Although there are small vacuoles in animal cells, but they are not equivalent to this large vacuole that plays really important and central roles in a plant. And finally, chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are only present in cells that can perform photosynthesis. So animal cells cannot perform photosynthesis, but plants can. So these are the 3 organelles that are specific to plants, but not animal cells. However, note, this is a very common mistake people make, is that they assume just because plants have chloroplasts, they don't have mitochondria. But plants and animal cells, they both have mitochondria. Now, if this is too much for you to remember and you're looking for a fun way to remember the function of all these things, here's a way to kind of a fun way, an unscienced way of remembering the functions of all these organelles, and I leave it up to you to make the connection between the way it's described here and the scientific way in which it is described.